Hello, this is going to be my review of the Livo SC500 action camera. This is a cheap budget-friendly action camera that we recently purchased on Amazon for a little bit more than $30, maybe $32 or $33. And I will say that I believe this camera was released in 2017, 4 years ago, because when I checked to take a screenshot of the product on Amazon shortly after we bought the camera, it said currently unavailable. So that leads me to believe that perhaps this camera is no longer being sold on Amazon. At the time that I was recording, that I was looking around yesterday on September 25th, 2021, so it's possible that this camera is no longer being sold, which would make sense given that it was released, I think, in 2017. Nevertheless, I'm just going to talk about my thoughts about this camera. In this very short review, there's really not much to say except that despite the fact that this camera was released possibly around 4 years ago in 2017, the quality is very good. Again, I don't know if this camera will be in stock in the future, but I'm just going to go over my thoughts. This is the Livo SC500 action camera. My personal favorite video setting, 1080p 60 frames per second. I think this camera did very well recording on that setting. I'm just going to show you right now. I'll turn it on. The quality was very good. Upon closer inspection, it's not 100% crystal clear. It is a little bit grainy, maybe a little bit grainy, but overall I think the quality is very good and it captured colors very well. The blue sky that was filming when it was a nice day, it really captured those colors very well. It was not dark looking video. It was very bright. Maybe a little bit grainy, not 100% clear quality, but as you can see, this camera has several different settings. My personal favorite setting being 1080p 60 frames per second. It also has 2.7K at 30 frames per second and 4K resolution at 30 frames per second, but I always prefer this setting, 1080p 60 frames per second, a good combination of clear video and smooth video, 60 frames per second. So there's really not much I would like to say except that the camera was unavailable yesterday on Amazon when I checked on Saturday, September 25th, 2021, and I think that it records HD video, 1080p 60 frames per second very well, despite not being, it's not perfectly clear, but it does show some good detail and captures colors very well. So I'm very happy with this camera overall. One thing I will say is that, I don't know if you can see it, but you see there's kind of a scratch on the underwater housing. It came kind of scratched up, the underwater housing, the part that goes over the lens. It, for some reason, is a little scratched up. It's not a really big deal for me. I don't really care. Maybe I won't use it without. I'll be able to use it without the underwater housing, but a little bit of a disappointment to see that it came scratched up. Now you can probably see it. See the scratches right here? Kind of strange, but not the end of the world. The other thing is that when the first few clips I recorded with this camera, the audio stopped recording after about 30 seconds. So for those few clips I recorded, there was no audio. Not a really big deal for me. It's okay if the video doesn't have audio. Today when I recorded, everything was fine. So don't know if that'll be a recurring issue where sometimes it records audio, sometimes it doesn't. Not really a big deal for me. I just want to make videos. It doesn't have audio, not the biggest deal for me, because a lot of these action cameras, a lot of the cheap action cameras, the microphones are not very, they don't really pick up the audio very well anyways. They're not the best. So with cheap action cameras, microphone isn't the best anyways, so it's okay. Photos. Last thing I'll say is photos came out very well on this camera. Cheap action cameras, especially cheap action cameras, ones that cost maybe $50 or less, you're not going to find the greatest photos there because really these are for making videos, not for taking photos. The photo feature is really just, it's there, but it's not going to replace your standalone camera or your smartphone camera. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that the photos were pretty clear on this camera. That's all I have to say. I do like this purchase. I'm happy with this camera. It was released maybe 4 years ago, so the quality isn't crystal clear. Maybe a little bit grainy if you really look very closely, if you scrutinize the video. But overall, I think it was very clear, captured colors very well. And overall, I am happy with this product, the Livo SC500 action camera. I am happy that I purchased this on Amazon for a little bit more than $30. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see some sample footage recorded with this camera, feel free to stay for the next part of the video where we show you some sample clips recorded with this camera and some sample photos as well. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. 1080p 60 frames per second video test. 1080p 60 frames per second video test. Okay, I just want to do one clip here. It's just going to be one clip, and then I'm going to... I promise. 1080p 60 frames per second video test. 1080p 60 frames per second. (1080p 60 frames per second video test with the Livo action camera. 1080p 60 frames per second video test. (1080p 60 frames per second. (1080p 60 frames per second video test.